The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the River. Oh, what a Friday it is. Did you create a firestorm? Holy a tsunami of
questions.
defecations and questions. And you know something? The issue that I'm looking at in front of me, and you can encapsulate it here with the article in the Herald and also speak about your little foray into breaking the news before the Herald. And even this article isn't.
That's cleaned up. I think that
it cleaned it up, but not to the degree it needs to be cleaned up, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
That's why it's great to have the show and have more time. But this issue has finally revealed the real problem in Fall River. And for the people who were whining about disparaging that I know that you got crucified and they said, oh, it's about the purple bags and Kadeem. This is all about the purple bags. No, it finally got to what we've been saying for a long time. Lack of oversight, lack of people doing their job, incompetence and ineptness by the financial teams. It's these pay raises and these contract languages that live forever and like a cancer just erode the budget because you don't even know it's happening. And shame on the city council for not really looking into the contract. And if you don't know about it, please make a call. Call somebody who actually knows. And I'm going to show why. These people have known this. We've told them for years, if you got a question, call. We'll find the answer. If I don't have the answer, or you don't have the answer. But they don't. They just rubber stamp everything, and they got these things that continually erode. We went over Mary Sahadi's automatic raise. She would have got $10,000 in 4 years, $75,000 if she worked 30 years for the city. When you begin to increase these things exponentially and not even know it because they become automatic, this is what happens. This deficit was caused by years of paying people to negotiate crappy contracts that weren't in the best interests of the taxpayer or even in the best interest of some of the unions. Because some unions got preferential treatment, other unions had to go to arbitration and cost the city more money. And this is the real issue, the financial team or lack thereof. So go ahead, CJ. Hit this while I dig out one of my letters.
Well, I just thought it was very interesting because we've been following this for, what, a while now. I mean, we just couldn't break it because we didn't have all the parts and pieces because there's a lot of still unanswered questions. And the big question is, why all of a sudden now is Chief Dupere and Paul Coogan willing to amend the contract? His contract is up this year. Is he afraid he's going to be replaced? I know that people in the police department are lining up to take that job if it comes available. And, you know, he's had, what, 3 years in this position already? Most of the chiefs take the job for 3 years to bump up their pensions because, let's get it real, $215,000 a year this guy's making. I don't think anyone is worth $200,000 a year in Fall River. Not even the mayor.
Well, they may be worth it, but they can't get that salary in Fall River because you have to, as capitalism says, it's what the market will bear. And the Fall River market will not bear people who are getting $200,000 salaries.
But we have them. We have them all over the place.
I know. Well, there you go. We're getting back to the real problem here, CJ.
And, you know, and it's really sad because when you look at the fact that my property value was knocked up so that I'm paying $1,300 more a year in taxes, other people, I mean, when I saw a triple-decker in the South End's new valuation being $397,000, they can't sell that house for $379,000. I checked the sales around that home, and guess what? they're in the 279 to 289 area. So how is that house worth $379,000?
Look, again.
You know why it's that way? Because we got to pay a $215,000 salary.
No, you're right, and that's the key. But there's so many other instances. Now we got the superintendent of schools telling people go to vocational schools are privileged. No, the people who are privileged are those rich movie stars who may even beat the rap now because they paid everybody off, including the people that were in the scam. Now they're saying that she may beat it. How can you beat it if your kid got in as a rower and they never been in a boat?
Right.
But they get into college. It's money. And this is the same thing. But this is the core issue. And listen, let's set the record straight right at the get-go. This is not, and I know a lot of people are already throwing bombs at Coogan. And you know me, I'll throw a bomb if it's necessary. But the reality is, this is not his fault. This has uncovered and opened up Pandora's box. We're going to see how long, and I have heard a rumor that this goes back to Frank McDonald.
It's possible.
How many millions of dollars have they gotten in this hidden benefit? But the problem is, we can't really get to the bottom of this until we pull the contract and actually see. I have been told, and I'm going to say, look, I can't speak definitively on this particular issue because I do not have Dupair's contract yet. And this is an issue of contract language interpretation. I heard, it was alleged that he said, because it went back to McDonald, it was a past practice. Well, let me explain something about past practices. It's only a past practice if it was done for a very long time without deviation. He may be able to establish that if they went all the way back to McDonald. But the second and most important part is that whatever that contract interpretation, which isn't clearly defined in the contract, to be established as a past practice, it had to be understood and agreed upon by the city and the employee. And I don't think anybody in their right mind will say that they agreed to allow this to happen, even though, in my mind, I think they did, because Mary Sahadi screwed up and she said, well, we didn't have the money in the budget to pay this. Well, number one, you shouldn't have the money in the budget. Because if there's a sick leave buyback, it shouldn't be at the end of every year and at the employee's discretion. There's a sick leave buyback in a firefighter's contract. But that's at the end of their career, after they retire. It's capped, and in advance they know how much it's going to cost them, and then they can make the budgetary. And as a matter of fact, there was a complaint about if it was 12 weeks vacation, that was the max, 12 and a half. I don't know what it is now. But they wouldn't hire anybody for at least 12 weeks so they could make that payout a wash. But you can prepare for foreseen expenses. But these things, you're leaving it at the discretion of the employee. I wish they would have let me do that in our contract. But this is crap. And I can't speak to who's right and wrong on this side. But the premise is wrong fundamentally from a collective bargaining standpoint. You know, vacation buybacks can work, but only when they're fashioned in a way that it makes it mutually beneficial to the employee and the employer. But this is what's happened in Fall River. Mary Sahadi's been around for 40 years, supposed to be looking over the finances, and they're like, oh, me, oh, my, nobody knew, because the police do their own payroll. Really? So even though you're the CFO and we have a financial team, a city administrator, all these other people that go in there and tell you that the contract has been costed out and stuff like this that's going back 20 years now pops up, and you're going to blame purple bags? No, this is outright government inefficiency and incompetency. For decades, the people who are being paid and paid well to mind the store are not minding the store. The only thing she cares about is how much money she's getting in. We don't care how much money is going out. She does not care because she said it at the council meeting. You guys are going to get 2.5 max all the time and a couple of overrides thrown in on top and a few other bonds. That's her attitude. Mary Sahadi is not working for you, the taxpayer.
She's working for Mary Sahadi.
That's why the taxes never stop going up, even though the departments are smaller, the pays keep going up, and we hired a firm. We hire firms to negotiate on the city side, and this is the kind of language that they negotiate. And you wonder why I used to win all the time? It was like going to kindergarten to pick a fight. I mean, and I'm going to tell you, you think I'm blowing smoke, I'm going to show you. And CJ and I have discussed this numerous times. I've discussed it with numerous mayors. If you remember, Flanagan wanted me to look at the CB at the union collective bargaining stuff, and I said I would only do that as a consultant, but not a city consultant, as a consultant to give my opinion on what was good, what was bad on both ends, and give suggestions that were mutually beneficial to management and that work for both people, which is what. But I'm going to read you an excerpt. I think you got this letter. I don't know if you brought it with you today. This is the letter that I sent to the chairman of the financial transition team, Joan Medeiros, and I sent a copy to every member of the finance team. And I basically said, I'll read the opening and then I'll get to one. There's 3 parts here, but the city budget and associated hearings before the city council are influenced more by political perception than financial reality. I can provide specific examples by the volume. I will, for the sake of time, provide an overview of the 3 major areas of financial impact. Those areas are unfunded pension liability, health care, and collective bargaining agreements. This is what I wrote about collective bargaining agreements. The CBAs are the hidden minefield of the city budget. The long-range impact of negotiated stipends, raises, and benefits are not fully understood and could be devastating to future budgets. Benefits impact numerous other cost items in the CBA. For example, a pay raise also increases holiday pay, overtime pay, and other areas. And I can say with confidence that the financial team and the negotiations of the city have 0 bargaining experience. They give away the farm, so to speak, to some groups in exchange for endorsements and political support, while others are forced into arbitration to settle. The long-term results will be groups who are behind and will be looking to catch up, while the groups well situated will be looking for more. That's just a part of it. And I went into detail and I gave specific examples. There's why we're always in the hole. Because we're paying people to give away our money, and their answer to them giving away our money arbitrarily and capriciously is to raise your taxes, override, get more. Mary Sahadi will walk into the department and say, you're not issuing as many permits as you did last year. You're losing money. That's not losing money. Somebody in the building department can't control how much building there is in Fall River. One year you have a building boom, they're going to give a lot of permits. That shows what a bean counter she really is. She has no grasp on reality. Yet she didn't cost out these contracts. She's been around since the 80s. You're telling me that you couldn't look at these? I don't care if the police do the damn budget and the fire does the budget. Nobody else checks it. So if somebody in the police department decides to give himself money that puts directly into his savings account, nobody's going to flag it? There's no oversight? This is not Mayor Coogan's problem. I mean, it is his problem. Forgive me, that was an improper phrasing. This is not his issue. It was created. It's an issue he inherited. Now, with Mayor Coogan, we're going to have to see how he handles this prospectively. Now the problem has finally been revealed to the people of Fall River. They've been robbing your money, giving it to their friends, hiring people to do nothing for work, and then they don't give a damn. They just keep raising your tax. That's why we can never, ever get a break. Because, I mean, look, let's face it. I don't blame the chief, and I don't know who's wrong. I'd have to look at the language. I'm thinking that the chief is probably wrong, and all the chiefs were, in their interpretation, because it's not a past practice. It should have never been established in the first place. This kind of benefit, that's ridiculous. How can you make a budget when the employee can determine how much extra money he makes? I mean, that's absurd. It's crazy. And not only do you get to buy your vacation time back, you get enough personal days and other ways. I never heard if you work 3 days, you get a day off. Why? People work 5 days a week. They don't get an extra day. And, they've got stuff like their week is 8 days. And I understand that because it's the way the shifts work, and you can't count a day off as a vacation day. So there's a lot of other nuances in collective bargaining agreements that only people with collective bargaining experience understand. That's why I wrote that in that letter. The impact of these things to these clueless gnomes that we're paying big money to do. And this has been going on since Frank McDonald. How many chiefs have we had since then? We had Sousa, right? Racine, and now we got Dupere, right?
Yeah.
So 4 chiefs, and McDonald was on for a while as the chief.
Yeah, he took over from...
So this goes back decades. Stipends. Yep, the tree department has got a tree stipend. Who the hell ever heard of a tree stipend? You got a stipend because there's trees? Who negotiates this? Political people who are doing political favors for their political friends. But the problem is when you stick it in a collective bargaining agreement, it never goes away. Because you have to bargain it out. You have to bargain it out. And you set a precedent for other bargaining units. We're going to get Chief Dupere's, but it's not his fault. Look, I don't blame him a bit. I don't blame him a bit. If he knew that the chief before him interpreted that way and the chief before him interpreted that way, I don't see any problem with him doing the same thing. It's not his job. The city had let it go all these years. He's assuming it's a past practice, even though by definition, strict definition, it isn't. It was just a misapplication of the contract that the city never found, so shame on the city. But unfortunately, their ignorance doesn't make it a past practice. That's not an acquiescence. If they say we were never aware that they were doing this, then that's an indictment not of Chief Dupere, but of the people who were paid to oversee the money. And the people who went before the council and testified that in compliance with the statute on bargaining, that those contracts had been costed out. But that's the problem. When you got people who don't, when you got a mall manager telling you she costed out a contract, she has no idea how much that's going to cost. Because she doesn't know that it's not just for that one snapshot, 3 years. You give somebody this benefit, it's there forever. You give somebody an automatic cost of living raise, it's there forever. Let's look at, you told me, and I did download Chief Lynch's contract, which is nowhere near as rich as the police contract, and I don't even know it, but just at the base salary. But I'm going to do some quick math.
Yeah, his base salary, I think, is $158,000.
Yeah, so we'll do his base salary, $158,000. We're making round stuff, so don't start going bananas on me if I'm like 3 cents off.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna hold you to that.
No, not you. You know what I mean. The people that the people that were going to lynch you yesterday. You know.
Yeah, but as soon as that story came out yesterday by Joe Good, all of a sudden, all the keyboard warriors went silent. Okay, so right off the gate, just a 1.5% without the multiplier principle. That 1.5% on his salary is $2,370 a year.
Okay? That's without the other clause in it that says if the firefighters get a 1.5 or 2 or 3 or whatever they get, he gets that in addition. But it also is not clear whether it's factored before or after. And remember, that's added to his base, which now raises his base to $60,000 next year, and the 1.5 will be on a $60,000.
$160,000.
Yeah, $160,000. I'm sorry. Okay, so that's not bad. That's not bad. That's $180 a month pay raise, without doing anything. Without having any duty job expansions, without going to the negotiating table and saying, well, we're doing more work, we're taking on medical stuff, we're doing this, we're doing that, we have to go out for knock-in, now we have to get extra training, give us, please give us 1.5%. So I guess the New Bedford Standard Times is really clear when it said, if you want to be an administrator, work in Fall River. Ladies and gentlemen of Fall River, this is why your taxes can never go down, and we never have enough money because of these things. It's not purple bags. It's incompetence and lack of fiduciary responsibility by the people who are being paid to do this. You're telling me, going back to Frank McDonald, that they couldn't flag this? They don't know that stipends are always there and it's a hidden cost, and automatic pay raises compound. We did Mary Sahadi's. That would raise the CFO's base pay $75,000 over 30 years. So if you think that this is not an outrage, and this is why the council, their phones should be melting tonight. They should be melting. Let's see, we're getting enough. They can't even comply with state law or city ordinance. It's true. That's one of our viewers. But you know, this is the thing, and this is what disturbs me. You know, I complain, and they go, "Oh, you got something. You've got something against them." No, I don't. I mean, they don't affect my life one iota once I leave. But when I get in a room with these people, they drive me crazy. Because all they do is lie, misrepresent figures, and interpret them in a convoluted manner. Like I said, what has Mary Sahadi been doing for the last, since 81, since 90, when we went to the arbitration and they admitted they didn't do an audit? What is she really looking at it as the chief financial officer? Is she really looking at the finances? No. She's running around saying, "Oh, we're not selling as many building permits. Oh, this isn't the widget factory. We have no control over that." She has absolutely no understanding of public budgets. Because all she worries about is how much money she can bring in. That's why she said taxes every year. Don't worry about it, because I'll figure out a way to spend it. Of course you will. Give somebody else a stipend. I'm waiting for the shovel stipend and the backhoe stipend and a few other stipends. This has got to be eliminated.
We already have a snow stipend.
Well, I know that. And you got to kick half back.
Yeah.
And there lies the problem, because I think if we look at these contracts and we trace the history of these contracts, we're going to find out that this is what happened when we had the influx of millennial mayors. Because when Flanagan started, and then followed by Correa, they started giving everybody stipends. You know, stipends have been around for a while, but small stipends for extra duty, rather than give them which in that case, it's actually a better way to do it. It's actually better to give them a stipend, a small stipend, for assuming a little extra duty, not a $10,000 stipend or a $20,000 stipend or a $78,000 buyback. No, you give somebody a $500 stipend for having an extra certification that helps them on a job. And now under the new pension laws, that doesn't go into their retirement, so it actually helps the retirement, the unfunded liability, and it doesn't grow every year because it's a set amount. That's easy to budget. You know, $500, okay, or $200 or whatever. But to show you, again, you're going to say, "Oh, you're picking a no." I'm going to give you a classic example. I've said how many times about the retirement system tanking between 02 and 12? Because we put in $89 million less. You know why? because Mary Sahadi and people like her, and remember something, and I think you'll remember this, CJ. A year or so ago, Mary Sahadi was in front of the city council again, singing the same song she did during those years, that the PERAC numbers for investments were far too conservative and that we should use a higher yield so they could have more money to play with. Even though, historically, we saw what happened in those 10 years, that the system went from 75% funded to 40% funded. Remember this, Mary, you said it. And if you didn't say it, show me you didn't say it, because I'll get the video when you made that presentation about PERAC. What would happen right now if we did that? If we followed your advice, you would have tanked the system again. Do you know what's happening to the stock market with the coronavirus? 401ks investments are in the toilet.
That's right.
In the toilet. We would have got half of the conservative estimate. We're going to have trouble making the estimate this year if the stock market flips. And you are a CFO? And you don't know that pension systems need blue chip conservative investments? You went in front of the council and said that, and those nitwits in the council listened to you. I hope after this show they'll never listen to you again.
It would be about time.
Because I'll tell you, there you go. There's your example. Not only with the health care, she was full of crap. Look what she did. She went in front of there and again started with her BS. Oh, they're way too conservative. Yeah, we were way too conservative in 02 to 12, and you clowns that wanted to go your way, you want to lose your money in the stock market, lose your own. Don't lose mine. You're killing the taxpayers, you're killing the property owners, you're killing the renters, you're killing everybody in the city of Fall River. And for you to stand in front of the council and say, you have to have a 2.5% increase every year, you shouldn't even be employed anymore. That's just my opinion.
I agree with that opinion. We should be looking at ways to cut down on expenses. And I'm sorry to say this, but if it means we have to cut some of the high-paying job people, then that's what we do. We don't cut the people who do the work. We cut the people who get the high-paying jobs. That's how you make it work for the people.
Yeah. And you look, and you had a union have to go to arbitration trying to get a pay raise. While this guy's got a buyback that'll pay 1.5 patrolman salaries. So is that fair? No. And a lot of this stuff, even the unions would realize that it's a little over. Like I said, you negotiate what's beneficial to you, and it's got to be mutual. That's what negotiations are. You come with some middle ground. You normally agree on proposals that also help your membership, but are also viable economically for the city, because you have to realize if the city goes bankrupt, all those benefits are gone, because when we go to receivership, you're going to be getting nothing. They're going to cut your pay in half, and all those benefits are going to go out the window. So anybody who knows how to negotiate understands that you have to be reasonable. And the way you do it is, like we said before, you apples and apples. You look at the DCM and you tell the DCM, well, we're looking at all the DCMs in the cities of our size and our universe, and we can't pay you like Newton, we can't pay you like Framingham, but we see that you guys are 10th or 9th out of the 10 communities. We can try to begin to move you up that ladder toward the median, because this is what the city can afford. Because when you go to arbitration, that's what they look at. They look at ability to pay, and they look at where you stand in benefits and salaries. All this other extra crap that people are getting rich on, and only certain people, and that's the key. It's not the guys who go in every day and the women that go in every day and do their jobs. It's all the politically connected people. So taxpayers, property owners, everybody, revolt. And remember, this isn't, I don't blame the Chief Dupere for doing what every other chief did. And he said, well, they did it, I did it. I don't expect him to be a collective bargaining expert. He's going to do what was done before him. And if he's wrong, he's wrong. I can't even make a comment on that because I've got to see the language that's in dispute. But I can tell you two things. It's not the chief's fault, and it's not Paul Coogan's fault. He inherited this mess.
That's right. Hey, we'll see you next week, and we'll be following this story as more progresses. Have a great weekend.